the topic we're going to address is this whole issue of metrics in terms of gender equity. In my opening statement the other day, I talked about a dispersed workforce, a changed workforce, a changed definition of work. And so how do CEOs deal with that who happen to be women? And so that's the topic I'm going to be addressing with each of the incredible women who are here today. And I'm going to introduce to you one by one. We're going to begin with Maria Dolores Dancausa, or as we call her, Marilo Dancausa. She is the chairwoman, you can come this way, of one of the largest banks in Spain, Bankinter, where she served as CEO for 14 years and then got elevated recently to being its chair. She came from the insurance industry initially, and now she is a leading banker. So Marilo, nobody is born a CEO. So tell me about your background. Where did you start? Let's begin with your studies. What did you study when you were in college? Mike?
¿Sí? ¿Funciona esto?
Yes.
Sí, muy bien. Bueno, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Margarita, everybody. I'm going to be the exception because I asked Irene and Margarita, and I would like to prefer to speak in Spanish because it's my own language. I feel more comfortable. So, if you don't mind, Irene told me that it was not a problem, so I will do it.
No, it's not a problem.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Muy bien, pues vamos a ver, yo soy, sí, efectivamente llevo casi 2 meses como presidenta de Bankinter y como decía Irene, anteriormente he sido consejera delegada de este banco. Bankinter es el 5º banco por dimensión de activos totales y somos los 3º en función de las agencias de rating, de calificación. Mi formación, como me preguntaba Irene, pues yo soy abogado, o sea que realmente hice la carrera de abogado porque estudié Derecho, era bueno, en el caso de mi familia era absolutamente vocacional, mi padre, mi abuelo, mis hermanos, todos eran abogados y yo hice esa misma carrera. Luego la vida me llevó por otros derroteros, ¿no?
Marilo.
¿Sí?
Why did you decide to study law? I'm sort of going backwards.
Yeah, I was just telling that it was a vocational, fue vocación, because all my family was a lawyer.
Was a lawyer, so
Exactly.
you decided you got to be a lawyer.
To continue doing that. Okay. But everywhere, bueno, en un momento dado, a mí me piden que vaya a montar desde cero una compañía de seguros del automóvil, que era una compañía muy moderna en ese momento, en los años 90 y tantos, porque era una compañía directa. Y fue lo que hice. Después estuve trabajando en esa compañía, primero como secretaria del Consejo, luego ya empecé a llevar más responsabilidades y los últimos años fui su consejera delegada. En octubre del año 2010 me llaman para que sea la consejera delegada de Bankinter. Hay que recordar que en octubre del año 2010 había una crisis financiera muy importante. Bueno, he estado en ese banco hasta hace 2 meses que ya me pidieron que fuera la presidenta.
Are you the eldest in the family?
If I have children?
Are you how many people in your family? Are you the oldest, the eldest?
No, I am number 5.
You're number 5?
Number 5, yes.
Of what? How many?
7.
Of 7?
Yeah, because we were a very traditional family, you know.
And how many girls?
Just 2.
2 girls
one sister
out of 7.
And myself, yes.
And so, what gave you the motivation to lead? I mean, did your parents always encourage the children to be the first in whatever they did?
Not really. Because, I think it was life, you know. I thought that I was going to be happy working as a lawyer, but at the end, I had some possibilities to do different changes, different things, and then I always say yes. I think in life you always need to say yes to the opportunities.
What did you study when you were in undergraduate before law?
Okay, I was doing INSEAD in Fuentenebló, and also I did some programs in Harvard, and also I've been doing a Master of Human Resources and Strategy. That was the first one, and then I did INSEAD, and then I did some small programs in Harvard.
Okay, highly educated.
I mean, no, I think just...
Yes,
right.
you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. There are many CEOs who don't have as many degrees.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to this morning.
Thank you. Irene, one thing. I mean, bueno, dejarme volver a español un minuto. I'm going to take something about it. Aparte del trabajo, yo siempre he dicho que, bueno, pues yo soy una persona absolutamente normal, ¿no? Soy una persona profesional de mi tiempo, eso sí, una más de una generación de mujeres bueno, pues que se ha preparado a conciencia para trabajar en las empresas, ¿no? y para ocupar puestos de dirección. Y siempre he dicho que además somos una generación muy responsable porque fuimos a la universidad, en ningún momento nos planteamos no trabajar, nos metimos de lleno en el mundo laboral, pero sin abandonar nuestra misión como madres, en unos momentos en los que, bueno, pues la sociedad tampoco nos ayudó mucho a ellos. Y la verdad es que yo creo que hemos sido muy ambiciosas porque tratamos de compaginar ambos roles, como digo, pues con ciertas dificultades. Pero por otro lado, y es que es algo que quiero decir aquí, ya que estamos llenas de mujeres, que yo me siento parte de una generación de mujeres libres, independientes y con opinión, y que estoy enormemente orgullosa de pertenecer a ella, ¿no?
Thank you. Thank you. And now can I have Carmina Dragomir? So Carmina, let me tell you, Carmina is Regional Managing Director of Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Ukraine for MetLife. Okay. Before that, she was CEO of MetLife Italy, MetLife Romania, and so they decided, let's just give her some more countries. So let me ask you the same question that I asked Marilo. Tell me about your early background. Are you the eldest in your family? How many were you?
Not really. Is this okay? Good morning once again. So good to be here. Before the serotonin, some dopamine, okay? No, I'm not the eldest one. I'm the only daughter in the family. Coming from a family of teachers. So from the early age, I was exposed to continuous learning. My mother teaching Romanian language. I'm from Romania. All the studies were like focused on math, STEM. I did IT in the university, and following that, I landed into the insurance. It was, that momentum. And I still love the insurance world because I really believe that it's something special. It's a purpose in itself, in the business
protection,
itself. Yeah, to be near the customer when they need us most is...
So were you good in math? I mean, why
yeah.
did you... Yeah?
Yeah, and I started, I learned in the university the programming, some languages from COBOL at that age to, the newest technology. But, when I finished the university, all my friends were, coding. And I felt that, this can help me, but it's not really the passion that I have for coding. I'm still, interested on the new technologies, whatever is coming new, the new gadgets, but I never coded really for a living.
Well, coding and passion don't always go together. So, what was your very first job? I mean, not formal job, when you were younger.
My very first job, I still remember that moment. It was in an art gallery. And this was something, again, in a totally different area versus my learning experiences. I curated, I worked with a number of artists, Romanian artists at that moment, helping them, to have a predictable life. And I learned some things about art. I learned some profile, how to work with people coming from,
How old were you when you were doing that?
20, 22, 20 something.
But how did you land in an art gallery? Nobody curates, early on.
I remember that I applied in that moment in Romania, the pyramid of, it was totally reverse versus today. Hundreds of CVs for one job. The market was very, many people wanted to start at that moment, a career. And I applied in 20 jobs, different jobs, because, and this was the first one. And I realized that I like it. I can learn many things. I stayed in that job till, I finished all the learning period, the university. It was in parallel. And then I wanted to move to banking. And I did this step for a period of time.
Okay, we went from art gallery to banking.
To banking.
Okay.
And from banking to insurance, and since then, 20 years ago, I'm like, still in love with insurance world.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good message for everyone here. You don't have to start where your initial passion is. So you went from art gallery, math was your major, then to banking, and then to insurance, now with a passion for insurance.
Definitely.
Well, it has to do with protecting life, right? Right. Okay. Carmen Dragomir. Now I'm going to introduce to you somebody whom I just find so dynamic. Mercedes Era is one of the leading advertisers in France. In fact, her company, BETC Worldwide, had just been given a global prize for being #1 in the world, being very creative. Oh, too far. Can you switch seats? Yeah. So Mercedes, you've never seen her ads. They're so creative. And what Mercedes does is to infuse those issues we care about, how girls should be part of everything, and somehow makes them winning strategies for the companies that she creates the ads for. So Mercedes, first of all, where are you really from?
Alors, moi aussi, je préfère parler ma langue, même si j'adore l'anglais. Mais comme on a un bon système de traduction, Irène,
Oui.
bon système de traduction, oui, bien.
Okay.
Voilà. Alors, moi, je suis née chez vous, je suis née en Espagne. Je suis immigrée, je suis arrivée en France à l'âge de 6 ans. Ça m'a donné beaucoup de choses. On croit que de malmener les enfants, c'est un problème. Pas toujours. Moi, ça m'a donné beaucoup de force de changer de pays, de ne pas avoir beaucoup de moyens en France. Je me suis dit qu'il fallait que j'étudie beaucoup pour compenser tout ça. Donc, comme quand on arrive en France, quand on arrive dans un autre pays, le problème, c'est la langue. Je me suis dit que le plus beau métier du monde, c'était de faire des études de littérature. J'ai fait des études de littérature classique. Je suis devenue professeure de latin, grec, français. Et ensuite, en France, le système, c'est fonctionnaire. Et ça m'allait pas du tout. Donc, au bout d'1 an, je me suis dit, je ne peux pas rester dans un endroit où on me dit que ça va être pareil toute la vie. Donc, j'étais très jeune, j'ai pu recommencer des études, j'ai eu une bourse pour j'ai fait une business school importante en France qui est appelée HEC. Et au milieu de tout ça, quand je suis sortie, j'ai fait plein de stages. Mais j'ai fait un stage. Jamais j'aurais pensé que la publicité, ça allait m'intéresser. Moi, ce qui m'intéressait dans la vie, c'était Proust, c'était Saint-Simon, des choses, La Fontaine, etc. Quand je suis rentrée dans une agence de publicité, j'ai trouvé ça formidable. On réfléchissait, on pensait, on n'était jamais sûr du résultat. Il fallait toujours se concentrer. C'était des sciences humaines. Et il n'y a rien de plus intéressant, je pense, que les sciences humaines, J'ai adoré les mathématiques, mais les sciences humaines, c'est une rigueur aussi. Et voilà comment je suis devenue une petite publicitaire.
Wow. Why did you move to France?
¿Por qué?
Why did you move to France?
Je suis arrivée en France parce que mes parents ont eu des problèmes. Mon père a eu des problèmes économiques. Et donc, il a quitté l'Espagne. On était à Barcelone. On parlait que catalan. Je ne savais même pas qu'il y avait une autre langue. Vous imaginez, je suis arrivée en France et les gens me disaient « Tu parles espagnol, bien sûr ?» J'ai dit « Oui ». Et ils parlaient autre chose. Et je disais à ma mère « Mais maman, je ne parle rien du tout. Je ne parle pas français. Je ne parle pas espagnol. Qu'est-ce que je raconte? Qu'est-ce que je parle ?» Et en fait, le changement, c'était intéressant parce que mes parents faisaient partie d'une petite bourgeoisie à Sabadell, donc textile. Et quand ma maman était très belle, était très joliment habillée, on arrivait en France, on était plus pauvres, on n'avait plus grand-chose. Et ma maman, elle était toujours aussi bien habillée, mais dans un monde où c'était pas pareil. Donc, ça m'a aidée. Je me suis dit que l'argent, c'était bien. En avoir un peu, c'était bien. Et qu'il fallait se débrouiller pour voilà, j'ai eu 6 ans, mais j'avais très clairement en idée qu'il fallait que je fasse des choses pour qu'on aille mieux, pour qu'on puisse faire ce qu'on voulait. Voilà, j'avais ça dans la tête. Ma maman travaillait. Ma maman travaillait à la maison. On dit qu'elle ne travaille pas quand elle travaille à la maison. En fait, et mon papa travaillait à l'extérieur. Et quand j'ai eu 6-7 ans, je me suis dit, en fait, c'est ma mère qui travaille et mon père, il s'amuse dehors. Et je me suis dit, je vais aller m'amuser comme mon papa. C'est formidable.
Now, do you guys understand how her ads would be different given the personality that Mercedes has? It's what I enjoy about her. So Mercedes Era, welcome her. So we have banking, we have insurance, we have advertising, and now I want to introduce to you Ana Angelique from Mercandom, MSD Spain. She's CEO of that now for, since 2019, yes. Again, can we switch seats so I could talk to you a little bit closer? What was your original training in? I'm not quite sure. I can't see it from your bio. What did you study when you were in university?
So, good morning, everyone. So I studied in Barcelona, so I'm Catalan. My father is a textile, actually. This was my grown family. I have a German mother, so I'm half-half. I studied business management. I was supposed to be an engineer. All my family are engineers, but I was very, very bad in physics and chemics. Very bad. So I loved history, philosophy, art. I would have loved to do galleries, but my mother said, you perhaps should study business, and I just follow her advice.
Did you like studying business?
Actually, yes, but I discovered while I was studying. I started studying business not out of passion, just out of following my mother's advice, I would say.
Oh.
Yeah, just going out of engineering.
It's another generation because children don't necessarily follow what their parents tell them to do. So what was your earliest job? The very first job for which you got paid?
When I was still in school, I was 16, I worked in a shop, a shoe shop, actually.
Yeah?
This was my first job.
And what did you learn from that?
Customers can be very difficult. No, but I also learned a little of discipline, no? Because I was working 2 afternoons and on Saturdays, and with 16, you want to go out with your friends. So working early in the morning and going to the shoe shop I think it gave me a bit of discipline too.
But why did you do that? Not everyone works at 16.
I did do it because it was part of a family business. So my cousin built the shop, and I was working together with all my cousins. And so we were kind of turning ourselves. And I had actually a lot of fun. And I got some money, so it was good to go out with friends.
How did you end up with a pharmaceutical company?
So when I finished my studies in business, I really wanted to go to Germany because I'm half German. I was born in Germany. And I started at Bain & Company, a consulting company. And so I started being very broad. I work in a lot of sectors. And I ended up working for telecom for 8-9 years that I loved. And one day I got this call asking me to come to Merck, MSD, and I said, I have no idea how I should do that. I have no idea. I'm not a science person. I have never done that. And they said to me, you should come because we need outside people. We need innovative people, think different, do things in another way. And they really were very, very people-oriented. And I really liked the interview, and I said, I love the challenge, because I was already 7-8 years in telecom. I loved my background at Bain to being in very different sectors, banking, aerospace, fashion even when I was in consulting. So I just tried.
You just tried it. What was the first job at Merck?
I have been a lot in marketing strategic roles in my life, in consulting strategic. So I started through what was called business operations strategic side. We were managing a lot of, actually the main thing I did was the digital transformation of the go-to-market model. This was the main reason they hired me, yeah.
Well, you stayed, however, because what did they do that you liked?
Now, they train you. They really invest in your capabilities. So even if I was on a support function, I did start to do trainings in different business units. And then they promoted me to a smaller business unit, and then a bigger one, and then a more hospital-oriented, more oncology, more diabetes. And then they offered me a managing director role in Austria. I speak German, so this is helpful. So I went there, and then they promoted me to lead Spain as the managing director president in Spain.
Just like that?
Well, it makes work, eh?
Ana Hesse, please welcome her.
Thank you.
Again, more personal. Quickly, are you married, Mariló, and have children?
Yes, I am married, and I have 3 children.
Okay. And Ana?
I have two children.
Okay.
Yeah, 22 and 19.
Married?
Yeah.
Okay. Nope, not everybody has to be married. Mercedes?
Non, moi je ne suis pas mariée, j'ai un fiancé, mais on a 5 enfants. Donc peut-être un jour on va se marier, mais il faut être sûr. Il faut vraiment être sûr.
Carmen?
Yes, and my daughter is 25 years old, so
I can't hear her.
My daughter is 25 years old. Yes, and yes. And maybe this is one of the things that...
So you have one daughter of
yeah.
25?
Yeah.
What, you started at 10?
Thank you, Irene. So kind.
No. I'm trying to make a point. You know, these are CEOs. They're married. They have children. So I don't know whether they did Zumba dances before they went to work. But clearly, they have done incredible things while having a nice family. So the question I have for all of you right now, what is the nature of your workforce? What is the percentage working remotely, working at, hybrid, working in office? As CEOs, have you mandated any of this? Beginning with Mariló.
Ok. Bueno, yo En primer lugar, yo conozco en el banco cuánta gente está trabajando de manera híbrida o cuánta gente tiene días de teletrabajo. Nosotros tenemos unos sistemas de información que nos permiten conocer en tiempo real pues este tipo de cuestiones, ¿no? En la política de teletrabajo que tenemos en Bankinter es diferente en función del puesto. Las personas que trabajan en servicios centrales, somos una plantilla de 6.500 personas. De las 6.500 personas, pues como 2.000 y pico trabajan en servicios centrales y tienen derecho a trabajar un día en remoto. Luego tenemos 364 oficinas repartidas por toda España, en Portugal, en Luxemburgo y en Irlanda, que es donde operamos. Y la gente que trabaja en oficinas pues no tiene política de teletrabajo porque, claro, tiene que atender a los clientes y, por tanto, pues no aplica, ¿no? Nosotros no tenemos políticas que discriminan el teletrabajo en función de la edad, ni del sexo, ni de ningún condicionante, digamos, personal. Solamente es en función del puesto. Si a mí me preguntas por qué pienso y voy a la cuestión, por el teletrabajo, yo creo que es mucho más, en términos generales, por supuesto, pero que es mucho más eficaz y productivo el trabajo presencial que el teletrabajo. No tengo ninguna duda. Creo que ahora ya, bueno, pues hemos ido evolucionando, pero hay muchas empresas, bueno, no me quiero enrollar porque me gustaría oír la opinión de las otras personas, que tomaron medidas muy drásticas después de la pandemia para que la gente pudiera teletrabajar en remoto y que ahora están dando marcha atrás. ¿Por qué? Porque no valoraron los riesgos y las consecuencias en el medio plazo que tomar estas medidas de teletrabajo tenían, ¿no? Y había mucha presión por parte de los empleados para trabajar en remoto, porque, claro, nosotros no hablamos solamente de la época del confinamiento, es que hubo un tiempo de limitación de movimientos que duró año y medio, en la cual los empleados decían, bueno, qué bien, si yo estoy trabajando bien, me ahorro tiempo, me ahorro dinero, es más cómodo, etcétera, etcétera, ¿por qué no puedo seguir igual, no? Y claro, yo creo que si uno quiere teletrabajar tienes que cambiar los procesos y tienes que cambiar muchas disciplinas porque estás cambiando la forma de trabajar.
Yeah, I understand. But thank you, Mariló, for pointing out that there are differences in the kind of work that you do.
Yeah,
and bank branches are kind of retail, and so it's not possible to work from home. But thank you for pointing that out.
Gracias.
Ana?
So, we are 1,200 people in Spain. We have a manufacturing site. This manufacturing site never stopped to be presential during COVID because what we do is vaccines for animals. This would have break the chain, the food chain. Okay, so I really had to manage with the ministers of health and the ministers at the moment of COVID to make sure that we could survive. So there are around 400 people there. On the other side, the rest of the people, we went, of course, in COVID all working from home, and we did open the offices back in June 2020, very, very fast. I think we were one of the first companies to open back because we have, our workforce can be very young on the clinical research part. A lot of people living alone, very young, that wanted to come back to a place. Today, what we have is called WellFlex model. Fridays is closed, and from Monday to Thursday, so everybody does homework on Friday, and from Monday to Thursday, you need to come 2.5 days, but no control system. That nobody is controlled around. There is, and actually, we are in, because at the end the people come to the office. We have around 60% of the people around in the office, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday a lot, Thursday is a little bit lower. But the flexibility based on trust has bring the people back to the office. I think you need to make the office an attractive place. You need to make the office to come, because I agree. I think the personal interaction, a lot of things make more efficiency, but we did it based on trust, engagement, coming back, and the correct environment.
So basically, production people, you can't have remote work because you have to produce the products. But for those in office, you don't mandate a specific time. but you say 2.5 days at least.
No, the rule is 2.5 days. But if you do full, you need to sign a special agreement that you could do it. If the position doesn't require it and it makes it impossible, then it makes it impossible. But I only have 5% of the people that have signed full remote work.
5%.
The rest of the office-based people come to the office around 2.5 days, but it's not controlled. I don't have the numbers, how much, but we have the feeling based on the activities and everything was going to office that the people are attending even more than 2.5 days.
Okay. And Mercedes, in advertising, can you do remote work? Mercedes has an all-women company.
Alors, non, pas que, non, mixte. C'est dirigé par, en fait, BETC, c'est un homme et une femme. Et je crois assez fort à la mixité, parce que sinon, on nous met dans des coins et ça devient dangereux. Les clients viennent moins nombreux. On est vraiment mixte. Et on a même des quotas en faveur des garçons, parce que les pauvres, quand ils font leur entretien, ils sont moins bons que les filles. Donc, il faut quand même qu'on ait de la mixité. Donc, je crois beaucoup à ça. Alors après, c'est un métier qui est un métier à l'envers de ce qu'on imagine assez dur. On paye moins bien que les grandes boîtes de conseil, pourtant on en fait autant, donc merci d'augmenter les fees de votre agence, n'hésitez pas, et du coup on a besoin d'attirer. Donc on a eu de la pression en faveur du télétravail, de la demande, des jeunes en particulier, etc. Je ne suis pas sûre que ça leur fait du bien, hein, mais en tout cas ils ont demandé. Donc la règle qu'on a fait, avant le Covid, on avait le droit à une journée de télétravail. Mais ce n'était pas un droit, entre guillemets. Les gens le prenaient s'ils avaient besoin. Et en général, on le faisait parce qu'on avait tout d'un coup du travail personnel à faire, d'écriture, etc. Après le Covid, on a mis une règle qui est 2 jours par semaine. Honnêtement, je trouve que c'est beaucoup. En fait, je trouve que c'est beaucoup. Imaginez un jeune qui commence à travailler. Il y a le week-end, samedi, dimanche, et 2 jours. Donc, il a plus de jours à la maison qu'au travail. Moi, si j'avais commencé ma vie en me disant « Ah, je vais passer 4 jours à la maison », d'abord, je n'avais pas du tout envie, et je vais aller 3 jours au travail, ce n'est pas la même chose. Le travail est devenu moins essentiel. Et je pense que c'est un vrai sujet, il faudra qu'on en parle, parce qu'on parlait tout à l'heure de la santé mentale. On s'est aperçu qu'on a 1/3 des jeunes qui ont des problèmes de santé mentale aujourd'hui. Je pense que le fait de leur compliquer la vie, quand ils commencent à travailler, de leur dire « Oh, tu peux travailler, mais tu peux te rester chez toi, mais ceci, mais cela », ça change la vie. Ça donne moins d'essentialité au travail. Et pourtant, le travail, c'est essentiel. Donc nous, on autorise 2 jours. Sans regarder en lien avec les managers. Et en fait, en 2022, il y a les gens ont pris au moins 1 jour. Comme ce n'est pas obligatoire, ils prennent quasiment systématiquement au moins 1 jour. Honnêtement, les vendredis, quand je me promène, je me sens assez seule. On est 1200, tout d'un coup, on n'est plus 1200.
Yeah,
donc, voilà.
Okay. Got it. Carmen?
So, definitely we are working in the hybrid way. 87% of the employees are saying that this is the preferred model these days, so we need to understand and go in that direction. We are going into the office 2 days per week, and 3 days are from home. Leaders more, because you need to be close to the team, so to have the time to interact with each and one team member. But this is a framework, because, at the end of the day, we need to consider the special circumstances of each and one employee, where we are in that moment, how they can be performant, and how they can still, follow their personal goals. So we are trying to, put in the system the entire possible flexibility. And I would say that this is just the current format, because, the most 2024 MetLife employee benefits trend study says that This is not even the most important piece for the employees these days. What is most important, 83% of the employees are saying worldwide, not only, you know, in MetLife, that it's very important for them how they can do the work, how they can get the work done. The level of autonomy, knowledge, tools, you know, that environment to be performant. It's important what kind of work they are doing. So to listen and to create a career path for them is the second thing. The third thing is when during the day, and only the fourth is from home, for the office. So we need to be conscious about the fact that this is evolving, and we need all the brains around the table with their version around the table. So we need to listen and to put in place in the specific framework the right approach.
So what percentage would you estimate are the workers working remotely versus hybrid versus
we have
total in office?
We have very limited cases in remote. We have interesting 5 to 10% of the people coming on daily basis because this is their preference. We were discussing yesterday at some point and even today, if you are alone, if you are, you have a stretch situation at home, you cannot work from the kitchen. If you want to put those barriers between home and personal, professional life, you may prefer to go to the office. So there are people that are coming. What we are trying to do is, to encourage the team to be in the office with a meaning. Not to tick the box, I'm in the office for 2 days this week and that's it. To have meetings with the team, to have, different interactions for projects, for workshops, for learning face-to-face experiences. But the trend is that more and more people are coming to the office for 2 things, the face-to-face interaction and the easiness to do business, maybe even if we are totally digital, and the meaningful conversations that you may have in an easier way, not necessarily unique way.
Well, there was a study that showed that those who are working most remotely are very senior executives. It is not a privilege for others who are lower ranked. Can you imagine then, given the workforce that has been described here, how hard it is for middle managers to coordinate all of these timetables? So one executive said to me, I didn't realize I had to entertain my employees to make them come to work. Big lunches, we provide big food, all of a sudden, cocktails at 5 o'clock. I know this is real. They're doing this to try to draw people back to work. Let me also share with you, because many of you have touched on this already, there was an economist study in which they said innovation is key to growth, and that innovation happens because of what they call clustering. When people come together, they called it aggregation. And it's by happenstance. It's when you run into somebody in the hallway, in the kitchen of the office, etc. And so they don't love remote work. They said, this is bad for cities, it is bad for companies, and they are pushing for what they call clustering. And so at the summit, we are clustering for new ideas. That somebody said, you may be productive on daily tasks at home, but you don't know that idea or that person you could have known had you been somewhere where you are meeting people. Yeah. So what do you all think about this? Marlo.
I fully agree with that. Como decía antes, yo creo que el trabajo presencial promueve mucho más la innovación. Al final lo que pasa, yo creo que por supuesto que uno puede trabajar desde casa y ser muy productivo también, ¿no? Pero si hablamos de innovación, si hablamos de cosas tan importantes para una empresa como es sentirse parte de ella, como sentirse implicado, pues todo esto requiere presencia, requiere encontrarte con otras personas, requiere compartir ideas, requiere compartir tiempos. Yo creo que eso es fundamental, ¿no? Y entonces el trabajo al final en casa, pues yo creo que llega un momento en el que acabas perdiendo ese contacto. Te da igual trabajar para un sitio u otro, porque realmente tú estás priorizando otras cosas, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, pues yo creo que esto hay que valorarlo. Está claro que el trabajo híbrido ha llegado para quedarse y lo que pasa es que entonces, bueno, pues hay que inventarnos de nuevo con nuevas herramientas, con nuevas maneras y modos y cambios de procesos para convertir esa realidad que tenemos hoy en día en algo que sea bueno para la empresa, ¿no? No, iba a decir nada más para terminar este tema que nosotros en el banco, que nos consideramos un banco bastante innovador, lo que tenemos son políticas de gestión muy activas que van más allá de si es presencial o no es presencial el trabajo en cuanto a poder estimular, digamos, la innovación en banca, que es algo bastante complicado, ¿no?
Yeah. So actually, I want to add on the last comment she made, because I think hybrid will stay. The life is hybrid. Permanent. Our kids are hybrids. We work in a hybrid world. So I think we just need to adapt and go with it. I think there are advantages. You need to be clear that the engagement and the connections are kept. So if it goes to the extreme that you're never there is where it doesn't work. And I think, for example, flexibility doesn't mean you don't go to the office, but perhaps you just go to core hours. So I'm going to the speaker we follow wellness. If you do your sport at first early in the morning and you're not, I remember myself, I was at 8 a.m. in the morning in the office, and in Spain with Spanish hours, 9 p.m. back home. This was what I did, and it's not so long ago. And today, actually, there is anything is judging you if you arrive 9:30, 10, and you're leaving at 4. And I know there are countries much more advanced on that. So flexibility is not only you are present, it means, or perhaps you work one day off, but 4 present, but also how many hours you're present and all the things. Complexity of management, I agree, because of course, if some are there or not, you need a bit of discipline to make hybrid work, because the people need to be connected. I remember before, if you were not in the office, you could not work because you were not invited in a proper way into the meetings. So I think there are very positives around that. I think we are improving because the life has changed. It's also attracting all type of generations, but it cannot go to extreme. You need this interaction at least for some. This is why we put these 2.5 days per week.
Mercedes, you brought up something that I thought was interesting, and that is when you have too much time at home, the idea of work changes. Yeah. You want to talk some more about that, because I understand what you're talking about.
Alors, je vais tout de suite y revenir. Je veux juste réagir par rapport à ce que vous dites, parce que nous, notre métier, c'est de faire de la stratégie et de faire ensuite de la création. Moi, je ne sais pas la faire quand ils ne sont pas là. Et honnêtement, je me retrouve parfois où il est en télétravail. Mais très bien, à quoi ça sert? Le télétravail, c'était bien lorsque les gens ont du travail à faire seuls quelque part pour se préparer, pour écrire quelque chose. Si on fait de la comptabilité, peut-être. Mais pour faire de la stratégie, à un moment donné, moi, j'ai besoin que les gens soient autour de la pièce. Donc là où je suis gênée, c'est quand on a mis des méthodes digitales, des Zooms, des Teams. Ils passent leur journée en Zoom et en Teams, et c'est pas pareil que d'être là. C'est pas vrai, c'est pas pareil. Après, je veux qu'on se dise la vérité. Je vais vous raconter une histoire. J'ai une amie qui tient une boutique de décoration. Elle vend des rideaux et je sais pas trop quoi. Et elle me dit, avant, les gens ils venaient tous le samedi, maintenant ils viennent tous le vendredi. Je dis, ah bon? Et qu'est-ce qu'ils te disent? Ils me disent qu'ils sont en télétravail. Et je me suis dit, ah, c'est formidable. Elle voit même des gens avec des fils, des écouteurs, quoi. Et ce n'est pas un problème de confiance, c'est un problème humain. Moi, quand je suis en Teams, soit on est en Teams à 2, et ça va, puisqu'on se parle, soit il y a 10 personnes, je m'endors. Et je pense que vous avez fait l'exercice de vous endormir en Teams comme moi. Et donc, je pense qu'on perd en productivité et en force. Et en tout cas, dans mon métier, c'est une catastrophe. Après, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Moi, j'ai les managers qui sont obligés de rester parce que quand il faut sortir une campagne, il faut la sortir. Quand il faut préparer quelque chose, il faut préparer. Et on a inversé les rôles. C'est-à-dire, je dis, mais où sont les jeunes? Ils sont en télétravail et mes vieux restent là pour que tout soit prêt. Moi, c'était à l'envers quand j'ai commencé. J'étais jeune, donc je restais tout le temps et les vieux s'en allaient. Là, on a un peu inversé les choses. Donc, je trouve ça compliqué. Et après, tu disais quelque chose, Irène, qui est grave. On va avoir une population à deux vitesses. Ceux qui peuvent se permettre d'aller en télétravail et ceux qui font du boulot où ils sont obligés à l'agence, par exemple. Ceux qui s'occupent de la cantine, ils sont là. Ils ne savent d'ailleurs pas qui va être là, donc c'est compliqué à nourrir. Ceux qui font les services généraux, ils sont là. La dame qui nettoie tout, elle est là. Et puis les autres, ils peuvent ne pas être là. Je pense qu'on va vers un drame social. Et ça me fait peur. Et pour rebondir sur ton dernier point, je pense que quand on est jeune, je ne sais pas comment on peut apprendre chez soi. On peut faire un devoir chez soi, on ne peut pas apprendre chez soi. Et toutes les choses qui se passaient, moi je me souviens du comment j'ai appris, toutes les choses qui se passaient, l'air de rien, etc., parce que quelqu'un tout d'un coup me disait ça, m'aidait, me donnait des moyens, ça n'existe pas. La stratégie d'une entreprise, la culture d'une entreprise, c'est quelque chose de très important. On n'est pas des freelances, on est des gens d'une entreprise. Donc c'est compliqué.
Thank you, Mercedes. She was mentioning that the new work arrangements and hybrid is a permanent part of work now. It's not going to change. She says you're creating two-tiered workforce. Those that have to work, the woman who cleans the offices does not have that privilege. Those in production, those in services do not have the privilege of working from home. But then you have the others who can do so. She's also worried about the generational divide of those who do not understand that you learn in many different ways other than just sitting at a desk. You learn from somebody you run into, from a rumor that you heard, about something that you should probably know about. And yes, thank you for bringing that. We're going to have a generation of workers who are not used to the continuity of work, if I can gather from what you're saying. Continuity meaning all the parts of work, the formal and informal, that make you productive. Carmen.
I'll build on what you just mentioned, both of you just mentioned. So I truly believe that the innovation thrives in those, cultures, climates where we feel that we are safe, psychologically safe, the caring environments. In order to be innovative, I need to feel, to believe, to truly believe that my voice counts, that I can have an opinion, that the people around me will listen and will consider me. So the inclusive environment is the first one. Definitely, I'm coming from the culture where, to be in the office, it was the norm. It was like the way of doing business. Maybe I'm biased a little bit too from this perspective. My daughter started fully remote. Now she's in a hybrid way of working. So we need to put all these things together. A local project can be definitely face-to-face. Of course, we have more fun. We can celebrate. We can, have that dynamic and the vibe. But when we are discussing about more countries and inter-countries projects, it's impossible to be face-to-face always because, it's like not doable. What counts then is the sense of community, the level of collaboration, the trust, the passion that you are putting in that project. If you are in that project because you really want to be there and you want to learn something and to bring your mind and soul and passion to that table, regardless the way of, the table. Is face-to-face important? I still remember that Brené Brown books, Wilderness, the Bravery in the Wilderness. And it was a study, a meta-study there. I still remember that one. If you live in an area where the air pollution is very high, the chances, the odds of dying earlier are 5% higher. If you live in a loneliness state of mind or, situation, 45% higher. Of course that we need to bring to our colleagues, the associates, the team, the importance of interacting face-to-face, of doing things together, but with a meaning, and to give them the opportunities to choose, in between the things, to be performant at the personal level and, of course, at the company level, and to be able to bring in front of our customers the best version of both the company and the individual.
Okay, no, I think that's a very good point. Women are the ones most likely to take advantage of the new flexibility schedules. But as Mercedes sort of hinted, women can also feel isolated when they're in a disconnect from people at work. And there is a natural thing that you are much more likely to promote those people whom you see and you interact with. So my question to all of you, given this new workforce, and we don't know yet the final shape of it, we don't even know the consequences of this new hybrid arrangement because we never had it before. What are the metrics? How do you measure performance in this new way of working? In the past, there were set ways of measuring how somebody is promotable. How do you now measure performance in this very changed environment with generational differences, with work-related differences in terms of schedules?
Bueno, esta es una pregunta muy complicada de responder. Yo creo que efectivamente hay que cambiar los instrumentos de medida. Hasta ahora, pues, porque además, entre otras cosas, ya más allá de que ha cambiado la nueva forma de trabajar y que el trabajo es híbrido y que hay que medir cosas diferentes, yo también creo que estos instrumentos de medida hay que estar permanentemente actualizándolos porque si no, distorsionas, es muy difícil. Entonces, es muy difícil realmente saber cómo contribuye cada persona al éxito de una empresa, ¿no? Que es al final lo que uno debería de medir, ¿no? Y yo creo que hay que tener, pues de entrada, no solamente se deben de medir elementos cuantitativos, sino también cualitativos. O sea, yo creo que no solamente cuánto contribuyes al negocio o cuánto contribuyes a los objetivos comerciales, sino igualmente pues cuál son el resultado de encuestas externas, de encuestas internas, de las encuestas internas que hacen los empleados sobre la persona, de las externas de los clientes a esa sección. En fin, yo creo que hay que empezar a cruzar muchísimos más elementos, pero efectivamente este es un tema que yo creo que es muy difícil de medir, ¿no? Y que todavía no tenemos la solución.
Just to try to add a bit is, first of all, you should be measured based on results and objectives. So this is why hybrid, I think it brings challenges, and also hybrid not only, also, in my opinion, this diverse equity and inclusion environment that we are trying to base on all type of preferences that go beyond hybrid. It goes to it goes to many, many things. And I think we are in a type of company, we have all these networks of people, of the different ones that have different preferences. But when it goes to measure, I think you need to have a goal that need to be clear, that need to be agreed, and you need to be measured on results. And these results are quantitative, partially, because you add to results. It could be financial, it could be commercial, it depends a little bit on the area you are, but qualitative too. And this comes based on feedback. This feedback can come top-down, it can bottom-up, it can come from lateral places and outside. So you also are receiving a lot of external surveys and measuring around all these parts. So I think you need to make a combination of all the sides to make sure that you are giving the people. But I think at the sense, the most important thing is you are there to do something and be part of something, and you need to get evaluated based on the purpose, what your function is while you are there.
Well, but the issue is, how do you convey corporate culture and mission when people are not all in the same place, okay? I mean, to me, it's a very hard thing for a lot of managers at every level to be able to do that. You know, the company stood for this, 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 and this. how do you convey that culture and mission to people who are all over the place and who come in at different parts of the week?
Bon, alors, si on est simple, si on a un système, je sens en effet une discussion entre hybride, pas hybride, etc. Hybride, ça nous va très bien. Le problème, il est, ça veut dire quoi et c'est quelle réalité et c'est comment par rapport à l'entreprise et c'est quoi le futur. Moi, j'ai l'impression qu'on est dans une époque qui a vécu le Covid d'une façon très violente. Le retour après a été assez grave. Je n'avais jamais imaginé qu'on n'aurait pas de retour. Qu'il y a des gens qui... Moi, je travaille avec les États-Unis, je travaille sur Danone et je travaille avec les gens de Danone et il y en a qui ne se sont jamais vus. Eh bien, je n'y crois pas. Et d'ailleurs, ils ne font pas du bon boulot. Parce que ce n'est pas possible. Donc, je pense qu'il y a eu une folie et du coup, une remise en cause. Est-ce que c'est intéressant? Est-ce que c'est vraiment intéressant de travailler? Pourquoi est-ce que les jeunes y vont mal? Parce qu'ils se disent, est-ce que c'est vraiment intéressant de travailler tous les matins? Ben, on devient fou. Oui, c'est intéressant de faire quelque chose dans sa vie. Et quand on fait quelque chose dans sa vie, on se passionne. Et même Barbara qui fait de la Zumba, elle bosse, hein, elle bosse beaucoup. Elle fait de la Zumba et elle bosse beaucoup. Et je pense que quand on a une passion, moi je dis à mes jeunes, j'ai pas envie de vous parler parfois parce que c'est comme si vous étiez vieux. Vous me parlez d'équilibre et tout, et moi je veux qu'on se passionne. Donc, quoi équilibre? Quand vous avez un petit garçon, vous venez de faire naître un enfant, vous dites pas je vais équilibrer mon temps avec cet enfant. Vous lui dites j'ai plein d'amour pour toi. On ne dit pas équilibre. Donc c'est compliqué. Après, sur le problème de l'évaluation, pour moi c'est assez simple. J'ai 1200 personnes dans l'agence à Paris. On les évalue pareil. Maintenant, je vois une différence. C'est ceux qui sont moins là, loin, sont moins là, ils vont le payer. Alors, pas quand on a un métier très informatique, etc. Vous voyez, j'ai une équipe d'informaticiens, ils viennent une fois par semaine et encore, et ça va très bien, ils ont l'air d'aller très bien, et de toute façon, ils faisaient ça avant, ils font ça depuis toujours. Mais mes stratèges, mais ceux qui dirigent, quand ils ne viennent pas, ben, ils dirigent moins. Je ne les vois pas, donc ils dirigent moins. Hein, donc, moi, avant, j'étais plus à la maison que maintenant. Parce que comme ils ne viennent pas, il faut que j'y sois pour qu'il se passe quelque chose. Donc, je pense qu'on ne sait pas encore vers où on va. On ne sait pas. Après les évaluations, je suis totalement honnête, bizarrement, on évalue, sauf des métiers très administratifs et très techniques, ceux qui ont plus de présence, plus de vigueur, plus d'énergie pour emmener les gens et qui sont donc en présentiel, eh bien, ça va mieux, ils sont mieux évalués que les autres. Mais on ne dit pas qu'il y a un problème, hein. On leur cache. Comme ça, c'est pour ça que je trouve qu'il y a de l'hypocrisie. D'ailleurs, les filles commencent à être moins là que les garçons. Alors moi, ça me désespère. On a déjà eu du mal à les faire sortir de la maison. On va les remettre dans la maison? Ça va pas, ça. Faites attention. Vous savez, j'appelle des femmes à haut niveau. Hein, les gens que j'engage, je les adore. Ils ont du vrai talent. J'appelle des filles et vous savez ce qui m'arrive? J'entends les bruits des enfants autour et je me dis, oh, c'est formidable pour travailler. C'est formidable. Donc, il faut faire attention à la problématique des femmes sur ce sujet-là. Je pense qu'on peut reculer très vite.
Mercedes said, it took years to get women to get out of the home in order to work, and now we're bringing them back to the home. And she does see a disparity between those employees who are most productive, and they tend to be those who come in and collaborate more than those who come in once or twice a week. She does see in her company, poorer performance. But remember, this is a creative business. This is advertising. You can't exactly do creativity when you're working remotely and not working with a team of creators. Carmen?
Maybe
Very shortly to add two things on this one. I was born in the culture where the strategy was cascaded. So level of people, level of managers, from one to the other till you know all the employees in one geography, one country. The things are totally different now. Everyone has access to the message coming from Nuria, from our global CEO. We have in MetLife, we have the regular Let's Talk Live, town hall where each employee is, exposed to the messages coming from the senior leaders, the strategy. Everything is faster. The communication is taking place in different ways. At the local level, we are organizing, different kind of communication, local physical town halls, management meetings. We have all the platforms that you have in your system. So this is one big difference, The other, is this enough? Definitely no, because it's an environment. What I want to mention is that, we are all discussing about big data, and people analytics in the era of big data says that each new employee needs only 3 weeks in our, companies to know for sure if it's a cultural fit or not, if the person feels good to be in your teams, in our teams or not. This means that whenever we have a new colleague, we need to have a specific induction for that person, starting from exposing to the strategy. Younger people, they value more the mission, the vision, the purpose that we are having, the impact in the social life of the country. When we are discussing, Marina was mentioning yesterday, the customers' expectations. The employees' expectations are the same. So what we are doing, we are exposing the new employees to discussions with the local SLT, with the EMEA SLT. We are going through a journey to show to them who we are. And this starts even before, in the selection process. Because it's, at the end of the day, is definitely critical. When it's about the performance, pay for performance, as you were mentioning before, we have, I would say, simple objectives. So specific, important, and measurable. This level somehow, the specific context, if I'm a new mom, or I don't know, if I'm having a personal context, I cannot be in the office as much. At the beginning of the year, I'm deciding my goals with my managers, and I consider all this, and my performance, based on my goals, can be outstanding, even if I need to work more from home in that period. And maybe in the next one, I'll be more in the office.
Thank you for pointing that out, that the hybrid arrangements can be based on different times of your life or career.
And priorities.
Yeah. So you can tell this is an incredible group. I have other questions, but I'm seeing that I have very limited time. But I do want, on this topic, I'm sure those of you with questions, go quickly. I don't have much time. There's one mic there. Okay. Nancy, go ahead. Quick questions and then quick answers, okay? Go. Mike, over here. Come on.
Okay. My name is Nancy Gomez. I'm from France. I lead the project of wellness resort for cooperation in France. How do you deal with mourning in companies?
How do you deal with mournings?
Death.
Oh, death.
Comment vous gérez des gens qui font face à la mort dans leur entreprise?
In what way, other than how they dealt with it in the past? I don't... Death of relatives of employees?
Of relatives, yes. Because she said, for example, with the manager, they will set up some objective, and when an employee is facing that, how do you deal with it? That's my question.
So very shortly, in our case, of course, that this moment, we like it or not, it's easy to talk about or not, it's a reality, it's happening, and we are supportive with that person, giving the time and space and support, regardless, even financial support to, cover that moment. And the goals are always vivid in the life of a company. So I can have, decide the goals at the beginning of the year, something in the circumstances is changing, and I redesign the goal too. Because, being a community, one of the meanings is this one too, to continue to be a community in tough times too, not only in easy times. So taking the burden from someone for a period of time is something that is happening naturally. I don't know if I answered to your question.
Okay, next. Go ahead.
Terry Dunn. I am Thailand HR Solutions. I'm here with the National Association for Women Business Owners. And Irene, your question earlier was, how do we make it all happen? And your panelist is spot on. It's all about having goals that you can measure. Come into the office every day, you could be the least productive. So it's not about where you work, it's how you work and making sure you're contributing to the overall objectives of the company. I too come from a pharmaceutical outlet. Merck have the space today, but some of us in the room were working like this before there ever was a pandemic. So to your question, Irene, what we could do for those of us that are in this space and it's new, look at some of the global companies that have had employees all around the world that had to work together. I sit in the US, North Carolina, but there were times when I had to work different hours to support my UK colleagues. So examples are out there. Look to those companies to see how did they do it. Those companies that had employees all over the world that had to make it happen, there are great examples out there.
Okay, yes.
Okay, good morning. I'm Muriel Pénicaud, former Minister of Labour of France. 2 points quickly. First, there are now many surveys that show that the hybrid system is the most efficient. Why? Because the individual productivity is higher when you are remote, and the creativity, innovation, problem solving is better when people interact physically, if possible, if they are not in another country. So the question is not, is hybrid system a disaster or a good thing? Anyhow, there is a huge social demand. The question is how you organize it in a sense which is the best for the employees and for the company. But my concern, and I will ask a question to you on that, is on the increasing social divide between the people that can work remotely and the others. 70% of the job on Earth cannot be worked remotely. In factories, logistics, cleaning, security, hospitals, etc. And we are seeing now new social conflicts in factories. A few weeks it was in Mexico. Why? Because the workers on factories say the manager, the people in offices can work where and when they want. Okay, where we understand we cannot choose where we work when you work in a factory. But we want some flexibility where we choose when. And for instance, Amazon has started to deal with that. It's the way they attract people. It's not the best employer in the world, but on this topic, they are advanced. And it's very important for me that companies think in how they are going to imagine new ways of working where workers will have to be on the place, can have some flexibility, some mastering on their life. Mastering time is mastering your life. So how you intend to do that? And I think you have...
No, thank you, Muriel, for pointing that out. A lot of the strikes in the US were from workers who did not have access to remote work, production, automobile workers. And so what some companies are doing are changing shifts so that you could, yeah. So, but do you see the point here? We are changing. This is a massive transformation on the nature of work. And there are changes that are here to stay. And yes, we have to be creative as to, and disciplined as to how to make it work for all employees and for the companies. Please thank this incredible panel of CEOs.